The battlefield was silent now, but the silence was not peaceful. It was heavy, broken only by the distant crackle of fire and the soft hiss of smoke rising from ruined machines. The human soldier walked carefully through the debris, his boots crunching on shattered glass and broken steel. His rifle was held low, his eyes sharp, searching for movement. He had been sent to clear the area, to check if any survivors remained. But deep inside, he already knew what kind of survivors he might find. Not soldiers, not warriors, but the small ones who always suffered the most in wars, children, lost and terrified, clinging to the shadows. The soldier turned a corner between two broken walls and froze. There, in the dust and smoke, stood a figure no taller than his chest. An alien child, thin, trembling, and holding a knife that looked too big for such small hands. The blade shook in the child's grip, but the eyes burned with something between fear and anger. For a moment, neither of them moved. The soldier's breath slowed, his finger hovering near his weapon but not touching it. The child's arm quivered, the knife pointed straight at his chest, and in that stillness, the world seemed to shrink to only two beings, human and alien, staring at each other. The soldier could see the dirt on the child's face, the trails of tears already dried on the skin. He could see how thin the alien was, ribs showing under a torn shirt. This was not an enemy, not a fighter. This was a child who had seen too much death. Slowly, the soldier lowered his rifle to the ground. He raised his hands, palms open, showing he carried no threat. "It's okay," he whispered softly, though he knew the child might not understand his language. But his voice carried no anger, no command, only calm. The child's eyes widened, the knife still trembling. And then, as if the strength holding the small body together finally broke, the alien dropped to its knees. The knife clattered to the ground, the sharp sound cutting through the smoke-filled silence. The child's shoulders shook, and then came the sound. A cry, raw and broken, filled with fear, loss, and pain. The soldier stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, every movement careful, as though approaching a wild creature that could bolt or break. But the child did not move, only wept, hands covering the face. The sound pierced deeper into the soldier's chest than any weapon could. He knelt down, close enough to see the tears falling into the dust. The knife lay between them, harmless now. The soldier reached out, hesitated, then gently pushed it aside. He placed his hand near the child but did not touch, waiting for permission that might never come. The child peeked through trembling fingers, eyes wet. There was no fire left in them now, only exhaustion. The soldier nodded slowly, a silent promise that he meant no harm. For the first time since the war began, he felt something stir within him. Not duty, not orders, but something more human. He slipped off his pack and pulled out a water flask. Uncapping it, he set it gently in front of the child. At first, there was no reaction. Then small hands reached out, hesitant, afraid this might be a trick, but thirst was stronger than fear. The child drank, the water spilling down the chin. When the flask was lowered, the alien's breathing slowed, though the sobs had not yet stopped. The soldier watched silently, his heart heavy. He remembered the warnings, the orders that said no alien could be trusted. But looking at this fragile being, he knew the truth was not so simple. This was not the face of an enemy. This was a child robbed of home, family, and safety. The soldier finally spoke again, his voice firm but kind. "You're safe now," he said, knowing the words might be lost in translation. But sometimes tone spoke louder than words, and for a moment he thought he saw the child's eyes soften. Above them, the sky rumbled with distant thunder, or maybe it was the sound of far-off weapons still echoing. The war was not over, not by far. But in this ruined place, among the ashes of destruction, something fragile had begun, a connection between human and alien, built not by force, but by compassion. The soldier knew one thing with certainty. This child's story was only beginning, and whether he liked it or not, he was now part of it. The morning after was no brighter than the night before. Smoke still hung heavy in the air, painting the horizon in gray. The soldier walked carefully, his eyes always scanning, his hand never far from his weapon. But now, he was not alone. Behind him, the alien child followed, steps slow and hesitant. The boy, at least the soldier thought it was a boy, clutched the strap of a torn satchel, the empty knife sheath bouncing at his side. His small frame looked weaker in the daylight, yet the eyes carried a shadow too old for such a young face. Every loud sound made him flinch, every gust of wind stirred fear. The soldier kept his pace steady, not too fast, giving the boy time to follow. They had not spoken, not really, not with words that either could understand. But somehow through glances and gestures, a fragile bond had been made. The soldier did not know why he cared, only that leaving the child behind felt wrong. They passed the remains of a burned-out transport, its metal skin twisted, blackened from fire. The soldier saw movement there, two figures crouched low, not human, not child, aliens, older, eyes sharp with suspicion. When they spotted the soldier, their expressions turned from fear to fury. One of them shouted something in a language the soldier did not know, but the meaning was clear enough: enemy. The boy froze, his body stiff with tension. He called out in the same alien tongue, his voice desperate, broken, but the older aliens only raised their makeshift weapons. They saw the soldier, and nothing else. The soldier lifted his hands, showing he meant no harm. He pointed to the boy, tried to show with gestures that he was protecting him, not capturing him, but their eyes saw only the uniform, only the human face they had been told was the enemy. The boy cried out again, louder, stepping between the soldier and the two aliens. For a moment, the anger in their eyes wavered. Then, slowly, they lowered their weapons, but the suspicion did not fade. The soldier knew what they were thinking. Humans were destroyers, bringers of fire. Why would one be walking with a child unless to use him to betray him? The soldier did not have the words to explain, so he simply bowed his head, a gesture of respect. Then he gently pushed the boy forward, urging him to speak. The child's voice trembled, but it carried weight. He spoke quickly, too fast for the soldier to catch even a word. The older aliens listened, their eyes narrowing, their bodies tense. Finally, one of them spat to the side and shook his head. The other simply turned and walked away, and just like that, the fragile meeting ended. The soldier was left standing in the ruins with only the boy still at his side. They moved on, deeper into the broken city. The soldier could feel the weight of eyes watching from the shadows. Every broken window seemed to hide faces, alien survivors who hated and feared him. They whispered to one another, pointing at the boy, at the human. It was a dangerous balance. At any moment, suspicion could turn into violence. The soldier wondered if he had made a mistake. What could he do with this child in a place where no one trusted him? Yet when he looked at the boy, walking with his head bowed and his hands clenched tight, he knew there was no turning back. Leaving him now would be the same as killing him, and the soldier could not bear that. As the day stretched on, they found a half-collapsed shelter, the roof still holding against the wind. The soldier guided the boy inside, gave him the last of his rations. The boy ate slowly, carefully, as though each bite was both a gift and a burden. When he finished, he looked at the soldier, eyes filled with questions. The soldier tried to smile, though he knew it looked weak. "We'll keep moving," he said softly, knowing the boy could not understand. But tone mattered more than words, and the boy seemed to understand enough. That night the soldier could not sleep. He sat awake, listening to the distant sounds of war, the echoes of machines, the cries of survivors. The shadows of war pressed close around them. Enemies were everywhere, and even friends were hard to trust. But beside him, curled up against the wall, the boy slept, his breathing slow. For the first time in a long while, the soldier felt the weight of responsibility heavier than his weapon. He looked at the boy and thought, maybe this war isn't about sides. Maybe it's about choices. And tomorrow, when the shadows closed in again, he would have to choose once more. What he did not know was that others were already hunting them. The boy carried secrets of his own, and the war had not forgotten him. The soldier thought he had rescued a child, but in truth he had stepped into a story much larger than himself. The sun rose weakly over the ruins, its light struggling to cut through the smoke-filled sky. The soldier awoke with stiff muscles, his hand resting near his weapon, even in sleep. The boy was already awake, sitting quietly, knees pulled to his chest, eyes watching the broken horizon. He looked small, fragile, but there was something unbroken inside him, something that held on despite the weight of war. The soldier stretched, stood, and offered a piece of dried bread. The boy took it without a word, but this time his eyes lifted, meeting the soldier's gaze. It was not trust yet, but it was something. A beginning. They moved on through the shattered city, their footsteps soft against the cracked stone. The boy followed closely now, not lagging behind as he had before. Every so often he would glance up as if to make sure the soldier was still there. Each glance was short, but each one carried meaning. It was the slow weaving of a fragile bond. By midday they came across a broken fountain, the water still. Trickling weakly from a cracked pipe, the soldier filled his flask and handed it to the boy. This time the boy did not hesitate. He drank, then carefully handed it back, his small fingers brushing against the soldier's glove, a touch that lingered longer than accident. The soldier smiled faintly, and the boy tilted his head, curious. Then, to the soldier's surprise, the boy mimicked the smile. Awkward but real. It was the first time the soldier saw something more than pain in the child's eyes. It was hope, small and fragile, but alive. Their quiet moment did not last. Voices echoed down the ruined streets, harsh and sharp. The soldier stiffened, pulling the boy into the shadow of a broken wall. He peeked out and saw a group of human soldiers moving through the ruins. They were not from his unit, but he recognized their markings: raiders, scavengers, men who had long stopped caring about orders or honor. The soldier's chest tightened. If they saw the boy, they would not spare him. They would call him enemy, maybe worse. The soldier pressed a finger to his lips, signaling silence. The boy nodded quickly, eyes wide with fear. The raiders drew closer, laughing, kicking debris, their weapons loose in their hands. One of them stopped near the fountain, scooping water into his helmet to drink. The soldier held his breath, praying they would move on. But then another raider spotted something, a small footprint in the dust too small to be his. The man cursed and called the others over. Now their eyes were sharp, searching. The soldier's grip tightened on his rifle. He could not fight them. All not with the boy to protect, but running was just as dangerous. The boy trembled beside him, clutching at the soldier's sleeve. The soldier looked down and whispered softly, "Stay behind me." The words were meaningless in language, but the boy seemed to understand the intent. The raiders spread out, moving closer. One of them shouted, pointing toward the broken wall. The soldier's pulse quickened, his breath steady but heavy. He raised his weapon just as the first raider rounded the corner. Their eyes met, recognition flashing. The raider sneered, raising his gun. Before he could fire, the soldier acted. A single shot rang out, the raider crumpling. To the ground, chaos followed. Shouts echoing through the ruins, weapons firing, sparks flying off stone. The soldier pulled the boy back, returning fire with calm precision. Every shot was measured, every movement driven by survival. The boy covered his ears, crouching low, tears welling in his eyes. The fight did not last long. The soldier's skill and the ruins cover gave him the edge. When the last raider fell, silence returned, broken only by the boy's quiet sobs. The soldier lowered his rifle, chest heaving. He turned back, kneeling to meet the boy's gaze. The child's tears streaked down his face, but his eyes were different. There was no anger, no fear toward the soldier, only relief. The boy reached out with trembling hands, clutching at the soldier's arm, refusing to let go. It was not just survival now, it was trust, fragile but real. The soldier placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, steadying him, grounding him, and for the first time he felt the bond between them solidify. They were no longer strangers. They were something more. As the sun began to sink, painting the sky, In dull red light, they left the ruins of the fountain behind. The soldier knew they could not stay, that others would come, drawn by the sound of battle. The boy walked closer now, no longer keeping distance. At one point, he even slipped his small hand into the soldier's. The soldier froze, then gently closed his fingers around it. The boy said nothing, but he did not need to. The bond was clear, fragile as glass, but unbreakable in that moment. Yet even as they walked, the soldier's mind was troubled. The raiders had spoken of something before they died, a name, a word he did not recognize, but the boy's eyes had widened at the sound of it, his face pale with fear. The soldier did not press, not yet, but he knew the shadows of war were not done with them. This bond they had built would soon be tested by forces far greater than either of them, and in the distance, unseen, someone was already tracking them. Their fragile bond was about to face its first true storm. Night fell heavy on the ruined city. The soldier guided the boy through narrow alleys and broken streets, always moving, never resting too long. The air was colder now, carrying the smell of ash and burned metal. The boy shivered, and the soldier draped part of his cloak over his shoulders. The child leaned against him for warmth. The bond between them no longer just fragile, but necessary. Yet danger was close. Closer than either of them realized. The fight with the raiders had stirred attention, and shadows were following. The soldier's instincts told him they were being hunted. Every sound felt sharper. Every flicker of movement in the ruins made his hand tighten on his weapon. The boy noticed too. He held the soldier's hand tightly now, his small fingers gripping with silent fear. Every few steps, he would look back, eyes darting into the darkness. The soldier whispered, "Keep quiet, keep close." The words were meaningless in language but strong in intent. The boy nodded, his eyes wide, his breathing shallow. They reached the edge of the city where broken towers leaned like giants ready to fall. Here, the ruins gave way to open ground, cracked fields under a pale moon. Crossing it would be dangerous. Exposed, but staying was worse. The soldier scanned the horizon, listening, and that was when he heard it. Footsteps, many of them, steady, closing in. The soldier's heart tightened. He pulled the boy close, whispering firmly, "Run." The boy hesitated, but the soldier tugged his arm, and together they broke into a sprint. Behind them, voices rose, harsh and commanding. The hunters had arrived. The sound of pursuit filled the night. Boots on stone, weapons clattering, shouts cutting through the air. The soldier pushed himself harder, his grip never letting go of the boy's hand. The child stumbled once, nearly falling, but the soldier lifted him up with one strong pull, never stopping. Bullets and beams flashed past them, lighting up the night with deadly sparks. The ground exploded in bursts of dirt and fire. Too close. Far too close. They ducked into a collapsed building, weaving through broken walls. The soldier's breath was heavy, his body tense. The boy clung to him, his eyes full of terror. The soldier pressed a finger to his lips again, signaling silence. The boy nodded, covering his mouth with trembling hands. The hunters entered the ruins, their voices echoing. They spread out, searching, their weapons glowing faintly in the dark. The soldier crouched low, holding the boy close against the wall. He could hear their footsteps drawing nearer. Every sound felt like thunder in the silence. Then the boy's satchel slipped, the buckle clicking loudly against stone. The soldier froze, his eyes locking with the child's. The hunters stopped, heads turning sharply. One shouted, pointing in their direction, and suddenly the chase began again. The soldier grabbed the boy, pulling him through a gap in the wall. The hunters opened fire, beams slicing through stone, spraying sparks around them. The soldier shielded the boy with his body, forcing them forward through rubble. Their path, twisted, narrow, a maze of broken corridors and sharp corners. Every turn was life or death. Every second counted. They burst out onto an open street, the moonlight spilling over them. The soldier scanned desperately, searching for escape. There ahead, a tunnel entrance, half buried but still open. He pushed the boy forward, urging him to run faster. But behind them, the hunters were closing in, their shadows long under the moon. The boy's legs gave out, stumbling again. Without hesitation, the soldier scooped him up, carrying him as he ran. The child clung to his neck, whispering something in his alien tongue, words broken by fear. The soldier didn't understand, but he felt the desperation in them. He ran harder, each step fueled not by orders, not by duty, but by the bond that had grown between them. Shots cracked past his ears, the tunnel drawing closer. The soldier slid down the rubble, diving inside with the boy in his arms. They tumbled into darkness, dust choking the air. Behind them, the hunters' voices echoed, furious, relentless. They were not giving up. Inside the tunnel, it was dark, damp, and narrow. The soldier pressed the boy against the wall, his finger again to his lips. The boy nodded, tears glistening in the faint light, his small body trembling. The soldier listened, hearing the hunters outside, their footsteps scattering, some moving past, some staying near. For now, they were safe, but only for a moment. The soldier knelt, looking at the boy. He whispered softly, "I'll keep you safe." The boy's eyes filled with tears, and he reached out, placing his small hand on the soldier's chest, right over his heart. It was a silent promise, trust deepening even in the shadows, but the soldier knew the truth. The hunters would not stop, not until they had the boy, and he was starting to wonder why. This was no ordinary child. There was something more, something hidden, something the hunters wanted badly. The fragile bond between them had already been tested by fire. Now it would be tested by secrets. And in the darkness of the tunnel, the soldier realized their chase had only just begun. The tunnel was quiet except for the sound of their breathing. The soldiers heavy and steady, the boys light and quick. The darkness was thick around them, swallowing any trace of light that might have entered. The soldier's eyes adjusted slowly, and he felt the boy's trembling body against him. Still pressed close, still trusting. Every minute they spent in the dark seemed like a countdown to something inevitable. The sound of distant footsteps echoed in the tunnel, far off but unmistakable. The hunters were still out there, relentless, never stopping. The soldier shifted, holding the boy tighter, keeping him safe against his chest. He could feel the small heart beating faster now, the boy's fear palpable. He whispered softly, "We'll keep moving soon, don't worry." But the words felt empty, even to him, because he knew they couldn't stay here forever, and the truth was, they were running out of time. The boy spoke, his voice soft, barely more than a whisper. The soldier didn't catch all the words, but the meaning was clear. The boy wanted to know why they were running, why the soldiers were chasing them. The soldier hesitated, looking down at the small, fragile figure in his arms. He couldn't explain everything, not yet. But something told him the child already knew more than he was letting on. "Why are they after you, Ter?" the soldier asked softly, his voice low and full of concern. The boy remained quiet for a moment, his eyes wide in the dark. Then finally he spoke again, his words shaky. "They're after me. Because of who I am." The soldier frowned, confused. What do you mean?" The boy swallowed hard, tears brimming in his eyes as he spoke. "I'm not just any child," he whispered. "I'm the last of my kind. The last of the royal bloodline." The soldier's heart skipped a beat. Royal bloodline. The words lingered in the air, heavy and full of meaning. He could hear the trembling in the boy's voice, the weight of the words that carried a burden far too great for someone so young. For a moment, the soldier just stared at him, unsure of how to react. He thought of the raiders, the mercenaries who had wanted the boy. He remembered their anger, their desperation. They had been after something, not just any child. And now, the boy's words made everything click into place. This wasn't just a matter of survival. This was a war for something much bigger. The soldier felt a knot form in his stomach. "Your bloodline," he said slowly, as the pieces started to fall into place. The boy nodded, his small hands clenching tightly against the soldier's chest. "They want me to lead them, to bring them to the throne." The soldier's mind raced. Throne? What throne? Was the boy a prince? "Who wants you to lead them?" the soldier asked, his voice tight. "The hunters, the ones after us," the boy whispered. "They want me to help them, Take control of my people." The soldier's blood ran cold. A throne, a royal bloodline. This wasn't just about an innocent child anymore. This was about power, about control, and whoever these hunters were, they were willing to do anything to take it. The soldier was silent for a moment, processing what the boy had said. The boy was the last of a royal bloodline, the last heir to a throne that didn't even seem real to the soldier. It wasn't just about a war between two sides. This was a war for control of a people, for an entire civilization's future. The boy looked up at the soldier, his eyes filled with desperation. "They're not just after me," he said quietly. "They'll destroy everything. My people, my planet. All of it." The soldier's mind raced again. The boy had been running from them for so long, his life torn apart by forces greater than he could ever understand. And now, the soldier realized something else. He wasn't just protecting a child anymore. He was protecting a legacy, a future, a hope that could change everything. The soldier felt the weight of the situation settle on him. He had never signed up for this. He had never imagined that a single child could carry such a burden, but now the truth was clear. He had to protect the boy at all costs. Because the boy wasn't just the future of his people. He was the key to ending the war. Suddenly the tunnel seemed much smaller, the shadows pressing in closer. The soldier knew their time in the dark had run out. He couldn't stay here. Not with the hunter so close. He had to keep moving, keep running. But now the stakes were higher. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was the last hope for an entire world. He took a deep breath, standing up and pulling the boy to his feet. "We can't stay here," he said, his voice firm. "We need to get to the next shelter. Keep quiet. Stay close and don't make a sound." The boy nodded, his fear still there but mixed with something else. Something stronger, hope. The soldier couldn't afford to think too much about the future. Not now. But in the back of his mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. This child, this last of the royal bloodline, he was the key, and the hunters would stop at nothing to take him. The chase was far from over. The tunnel stretched ahead like a dark vein through the heart of the ruined city. The soldier kept his pace steady, the boy close behind him, their footsteps echoing softly against the stone. They had been running for hours, navigating through the wreckage of old structures, their path only illuminated by the faint moonlight filtering through cracks above. Every sound seemed louder in the dark, every whisper of wind a reminder that they weren't alone. The soldiers chasing them were close, their presence never far behind. The soldier felt the weight of the boy's trust growing heavier with every step. The boy had said little since revealing his royal bloodline, his face set with a solemn expression that belied his young age. He had seen too much, carried too much, and the soldier could feel the burden settling between them. The boy had spoken of his people's hope, but the soldier couldn't help but wonder if that hope was already slipping away. The boy was still just a child after all, too young to bear the weight of an entire world. They reached an old building, a structure half standing, more skeleton than home. It was as good a place to hide as any. The soldier moved first, pulling the boy into the shadows of the broken doorway. He gestured for the boy to stay low, his own body tensing as he surveyed the area. There was a faint crackle in the air, a warning. They were close, closer than he'd realized. The soldier heard them before he saw them, voices low and threatening moving through the alley ahead. His hand went to his rifle, fingers tightening around the grip. The boy looked up at him, eyes wide, but the soldier shook his head. "Stay quiet," he whispered, his voice low and urgent. The boy nodded, but the fear in his eyes was impossible to ignore. Then, just as the soldier was about to move, something unexpected happened. A figure appeared in the doorway, stepping out from the shadows with the kind of slow, deliberate movement that made the soldier freeze. It was another human, but not one he recognized. The figure was dressed in black, a cloak of some sort wrapped around their shoulders. A hood obscured most of their face, but the soldier could see the glint of a weapon at their side. And there was something about the way they moved, the way they held themselves, that screamed, "Danger!" The soldier's instincts kicked in, his hand moving to raise his rifle, but before he could take another breath, the figure spoke. "Easy, soldier." The voice was smooth, calm, almost too calm. "I'm not here to fight." The soldier froze, rifle still raised. Something about the voice, the way it sliced through the tension in the air, made him hesitate. He didn't trust it. Didn't trust the figure, but he couldn't take the risk of an attack. "Who are you?" the soldier demanded, his voice low. "I'm someone who can help," the figure replied, stepping forward, lowering their hood, revealing a face the soldier never expected to see. It was one of his own. A soldier from his unit, someone he had thought long dead. The recognition hit him like a punch to the gut. He hadn't seen this person since before the war, when they had gone on separate missions. Now, they stood before him, but the eyes that met his were cold, distant. The soldier didn't know what to say, what to feel. How could someone from his past appear now when everything had gone to hell? "I thought you were dead," the soldier said, disbelief and suspicion rolling through his mind. "I was," the figure replied, "until I was recruited by the wrong people." The words sent a chill down the soldier's spine. "Who are you working for?" he demanded. "Who sent you?" The figure didn't flinch, didn't look away. "I'm not here for them," they said quietly. "I'm here for you and the boy." The boy's grip tightened on the soldier's sleeve, sensing the danger in the air. "Why?" the soldier asked, his voice tense. The figure smiled, a thin, almost sad smile. "Because I know who the boy is," they said, "and I know why they want him." The soldier's mind raced. The boy was already the key to everything. But now, this figure, this traitor from his past, was adding a new layer of complexity to the equation. "I don't trust you," the soldier muttered, his rifle still aimed at the figure. "You don't have to," the figure replied. "But if you want the boy to survive, you'll listen to me. The people after him, after both of you, have more power than you can imagine." Before the soldier could react, a shout echoed from behind them. The raiders had found them. The soldier turned, scanning for cover. But the figure moved faster, pushing the soldier and the boy toward a narrow passageway. "We don't have time to argue," the figure said, urgency in their voice. The soldier hesitated, then nodded. They had no choice. As they sprinted down the corridor, the soldier's mind was racing. Who could this person be? Why had they betrayed everything they had once known? The answers didn't come quickly enough. Behind them, the sound of footsteps grew louder. Closer. The figure led them to a small, hidden room, a storage space buried under rubble. They crouched low, staying silent. The soldier could hear the raiders searching, their voices growing closer. The figure pressed a hand to the soldier's chest, signaling him to stay quiet. They held their breath, each second stretching longer than the last. And then, just as the raiders passed by, the figure spoke again, their voice barely above a whisper. "They're closing in, but there's still a chance." The soldier didn't speak, only nodded, his heart hammering in his chest. He didn't know who to trust, who was really on their side anymore. But one thing was clear. The chase was far from over, and the fire that had been ignited was about to burn hotter than ever before. The world outside felt like it was falling apart. A silent scream that echoed in the soldier's chest as he crouched in the small, dim room with the boy and the mysterious figure. They had no time left. The raiders were closing in, and there was nowhere left to run. The soldier's pulse quickened, but his mind raced faster. His thoughts were clouded, confusion gripping him at every turn. Who could he trust? The figure from his past stood in front of him, their posture relaxed but their eyes sharp, full of unspoken truths. The boy, the last of the royal bloodline, sat close to the soldier, his small hands clutching the soldier's sleeve. Trembling, but trying to stay strong, the soldier looked down at him, his heart heavy. This was more than a child he was protecting. This was the last hope of a people, of an entire civilization. The soldier's mind flashed back to the days before all this began, back when war seemed so simple, good versus evil, sides clearly drawn. But now it was a different war altogether, a war for survival. for the future of a world torn apart by betrayal, greed, and broken alliances. The figure turned to the soldier, their expression serious. "You have to make a choice," they said. Their voice calm but heavy with meaning. The soldier frowned, his grip tightening on his rifle. "What do you mean? There's no choice here. This boy is under my protection, and I'll fight for him until my last breath." The figure shook their head slowly. "It's not that simple, soldier," they said, their tone low, almost mournful. "You see, there's a way out of all of this. There's a way for you to save him and yourself, but it's a choice you have to make, and it's one that'll change everything." The soldier's mind whirled. A way out? He couldn't understand. "What are you talking about? Who are you really working for? And what does this choice mean?" The figure stepped closer, their voice lowering. "There are forces at play that you don't fully understand," they said, their voice barely more than a whisper. "The boy, he's not just the heir to a throne. He's also a key, a weapon, the last of a line that was meant to end this war long ago." The soldier's brow furrowed. "A weapon?" he asked, his voice tight. The figure nodded. "Yes. His bloodline holds the power to control the very forces that are tearing the galaxy apart. But the raiders, the ones chasing you, they want to use him, to make him their puppet. They want to control him, make him a king who will do their bidding. But that's not all." The soldier's heart raced. "What are you saying?" The figure looked him in the eyes, their gaze sharp. "I'm offering you a choice. Help the boy ascend to power, to claim the throne, and together you can unite the people and end this war. Or—" they paused, letting the weight of the words settle. "You can keep him hidden, keep running, and watch as the war destroys everything he's ever known. It's your choice." The soldier stood frozen. His mind raced with impossible thoughts. This wasn't what he had signed up for. He was just supposed to protect the boy, not become part of some grand plan for power. But the stakes were clear now. The boy's future, the fate of his people, and even the fate of the war itself, rested in the soldier's hands. The figure stepped back, giving him space. "You have to choose," they repeated, their voice steady. The soldier felt the weight of their words press down on him. He turned to the boy, whose eyes were full of confusion and fear. The soldier could see it. The boy didn't want power, didn't want to lead an army or take a throne. He only wanted safety, only wanted peace. The soldier crouched in front of the boy, their eyes meeting. "I won't let anyone hurt you," he said, his voice soft but filled with determination. The boy nodded, his eyes brimming with tears, but the soldier could see it in his face. He was scared of what was coming, scared of what was at stake. In that moment, the soldier knew. He wasn't here to be a pawn in someone else's game. He was here to protect this child, to give him the future he deserved, not the one the warlords wanted. To force upon him, this child had lost everything, his family, his home, his innocence. He didn't need the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. The soldier made his decision. He would fight, but not for power, not for a throne. He would fight to give the boy a life away from the war, away from the bloodshed and betrayal. He would make sure the boy could find peace, no matter the cost. The soldier turned back to the figure, his eyes hard. "I'm not going to play your game," he said, his voice firm. "I'm protecting him, and I'll keep protecting him, even if it means taking down everyone who stands in our way." The figure smiled, but it wasn't a smile of victory, it was one of resignation. "You've made your choice," they said quietly. "But understand this. There's no turning back now." The soldier nodded, his resolve unwavering. The boy had already suffered enough. It was time to end the war. Not for the throne, but for the future. Behind them, the sound of footsteps approached again. Louder this time. The raiders had found them. But the soldier was ready. He took a deep breath, preparing himself for the fight of his life. This wasn't about a throne or power or control. It was about humanity, about protecting the innocent. And in that moment, the soldier knew what his choice had to be. The fire inside him burned brighter, and he was ready to face whatever came next, for the boy, for the future, and for the choice of humanity.